hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess. I'm standing up this time because my chair is not in here. If you didn't watch my last video, I'm trying to decide the color to paint my shelves, and these are the 3 colors that I'm down to if you care. But I thought that I would film like a recent reads because I haven't done wrap-ups the last few months because life is chaotic. It's not gonna be every book because I don't know if they're all worth talking about, but just some that I have stronger feelings for that I felt like talking about because I don't know if I'll do a wrap-up at the end of October either. Maybe I'll get back into wrap-ups next year, but I just wanted to highlight some of the books that I have read over the last couple months, and yeah. So I haven't been reading a ton. It's been hit or miss. Mostly audiobooks is what I've been reading because brain, stress, whatever. I have read some physical books though, but I can't remember the last time I really talked about a book besides on Patreon. Like, I'm literally trying to think the last video that I made about books. Maybe it was my end of summer, like my wrap up of my summer challenge, or when I read Love on the Brain. I can't remember. So anyway, I'm gonna go through those books. I'm probably gonna go in reverse order. So what I read most recently and like backwards to whenever I think to stop. There's probably not that many books excluding the summer reads, so this video probably won't be long, but I'm gonna have to pause because I have to take my cookies out of the oven and then I'll be back. Okay, this is my second day of being an employed person back in the workforce and I'm exhausted. It is 9 o'clock and I just need to get this video filmed and I'm just so tired. But anyway, let's go and look at my Goodreads. So the most recent book I finished was Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Basterica. Probably pronouncing that incorrectly, and I am sorry. Although, I did not like this book. So, I gave it 2 stars. I listened to the audiobook, and I kept falling asleep. Like, I can't tell you how many times I had to go back and like restart or skip back, not skip, but go back chapters because I would fall asleep. And yeah, I missed a lot. I got to the end of the book, like the last, let's see, 4 or 5 chapters. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish it. And I would keep falling asleep. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, gotta go back, skip back. I did this 3 times. The 4th time, Andrew woke me up. I was like scared and I was like, oh my God, I have to get up so I can finish this book. So I did finish it, but it just did not hold my attention. And I don't know, I can acknowledge that sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook and start to kind of zone out, and then that's when I'm like, oh shit, I've been listening to this book, but I don't know what's going on. I'll go back. And I did that multiple times for this book. I just never cared. Like, I heard people talk about this book. It's about cannibalism, and it's in this world where there was a virus that affected animals. Now humans can't eat animals, and whatever other sources of protein aren't enough, so humans start to eat other humans. And there's different people who get eaten and all of this different stuff. I don't really care to go into all of that. I just was like, okay, I knew this was a cannibalism book, so I assumed there was gonna be like wider topics. And some people have opinions, like they did feel like it was commentary on things. I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like I got anything from it besides, here's this alternate world I imagine where people eat people. Gross. Like that was it. Like, yes, there are very explicit, gory or whatever descriptive things of how people, you know, bodies are processed and how they're eaten and all this stuff. And I just was like, okay, yeah, that's gross, but like, what's the point here? I never felt like there was a good enough point besides, ooh, I want to make this story about cannibalism. And so other people do have different opinions. One of my friends, Ava, read it, but she read it it was originally written in Spanish, and she read it in Spanish, and she said that, you know, maybe stuff got lost in translation, which is huge possibility because you just cannot translate everything. And of course I read the translated version. So I don't know, maybe the translator just missed out on some of the nuances of the messaging that the author intended, but I just didn't pick up any of that. And I just thought the main character was terrible. Everyone in the story was terrible, except this one woman who was basically abused. Yeah, so did not like that. Like, I can be like grossed out and I can read all that stuff, but I want a purpose. But I don't know, is this considered horror? Because maybe there doesn't have to be a purpose. I don't know. It wasn't for me, did not love that. Before that, I finally got back to A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I started this early in the year. It might have been one of the first books I read and I DNF'd. Well, and I put on there that it was more a soft DNF. Like I was like, this isn't a hard DNF. I just don't feel like I'm in the right mood to read it. So it's been coming back in from the library so many times. This is also audiobook. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it. And I started it over and I did really enjoy it this time. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like I understand the need for the first part of the story because basically this world, humans, you know, we're using a lot of technology, robots, a big thing happened, they've gone their separate ways, they do not interact anymore. And then this story shows basically one of the first interactions with humans and robots again. And so the human is a tea monk where they literally go around and basically have conversations and like almost mini therapy sessions with people while serving them tea. It's a really cute idea. And he comes across this robot. For me, the first part, I was like, okay, this is fine. You know, I like Becky Chambers' writing from things I read from her before. Very cute story. It really hit me once he met the robot, just the conversations they were sharing just about like life and purpose and what it means to be a person, a human. Oof, I was like, okay, now I'm in my feelings. Now I'm relating to all of this and I was feeling it. So if that had been the whole thing, it would have been a 5. But I still really enjoyed the first part. The second part just, wow, took it. There was one quote, it's not a spoiler, that I wrote down from this, and it was, "It is enough to exist in the world and marvel at it." And I was like, because tangent, I've realized in the last few years, when I had the privilege of not working for the man, that I have no ambition. And I used to think that was bad. I used to always be like, oh, I need to do this. I need to be this so, you know, I can please my parents, and I need to do this and climb this ladder. And after not working for those 3 years, I was like, I don't care. Like coming back here, I knew that I would need to get a job just because we bought this house. We have a lot of things going on. Like at least I need a job for like right now to get us through all of these bills and whatever. But what I don't like about my job is that eventually after I get out of training, it's very customer facing, dealing with customers, which I don't want to do because I don't like people. I would like to just not do that. And so to me, I no longer have career aspirations. I don't aspire to be a lawyer or this or go back to school. I don't care. I do not have those kinds of ambitions. I just would like to do something that I can just go, you know, clock in, do my little work, don't talk to many people, clock out, and go about my day and actually do the things that I want to do. Because I think something that that book touches on, and just things from people I've been following and accounts I see on TikTok and stuff that really align with how I feel, is that I used to put my self-worth in what I did, like as a career, and now I don't, and I don't care. Like, and that's just me. So like my only ambition, my only goal in life is to be able to have, you know, a roof over my head and feel comfortable and safe and have food and blah, blah, blah. Hopefully the people around me are, you know, doing well. And hopefully be able to, you know, have some adventures and stuff and buy stuff I like. I don't know. I don't have some huge like, oh my God, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to be a million. I don't care. I don't want to be a millionaire. Like, I don't need that. I would like to make more money than I do now. No, I'm not saying that. I don't need no money. But like, anyway, that just made me think about me because I be going through it, you know, every other day I'm having a breakdown. But I think it's really it's a good novella. Very short, especially if you listen to the audiobook, so I think it's worth your time. Before that, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So I've heard of this one for a while. My friend Carrie loves this book and has read the other ones in the series. But when I was driving from Texas to Louisiana, I started the audiobook and then I finished. I know that I've heard before that there are 2 versions of this book. And there's one that the original is set in the UK, and then there's a US version where they like changed the stuff to make it in the US, and I don't know why they did that, but the audiobook I listened to, which was on script, was set in the UK, thankfully, and I really liked the narrator's voice. I thought this was actually a really good story. I gave it 4 stars. So essentially this student, she's like a senior in high school, basically, whatever their equivalent, year 12, and she has basically like this big research paper project to do, and she chooses to do it on this murder that happened in her town 5 years ago, where this girl was killed, even though they never found her body, and they think they had the suspect because the person they most likely suspected killed himself. And so she decides that she is going to investigate this because she just has this feeling like he didn't do it. And so it goes into that. She kind of partners up with his brother, and it just starts revealing a lot of secrets because it's a pretty small town. So she's learning a lot about people around her after doing some digging and getting all that information, and it starts getting maybe a little too close to home. But I had a lot of fun with it, and during that I was like, ooh, that person, and it ended up, it was different. There was a little twisted twist on the normal twist at the end where I was like, oh, okay. My biggest complaints were like, there's a moment, here's what I hate in any kind of like thriller, anything where we have a mystery of somebody who killed someone. I cannot stand the villain monologue. Like, I just can't. I'm just sorry. I just do not believe that people, when caught or whatever, they're gonna have this whole monologue, because I just don't believe it. That happened in Ninth House, and I was like, spare me. And that happened in this one, and I was like, ugh. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, especially the audiobook, and I thought it was engaging. And I really loved the relationship between the main character and her family, and with the bond that she was building with the brother. So I don't know, I thought it was great, and I am gonna read the next one, although I've heard mixed reviews on the third one, but I think it's the same girl and maybe solving something else, which, is like, we're suspending disbelief here, of course. But yeah, I don't know, I thought it was really good. My other thing that I remember is just like, I'm like, girl, sometimes you are being really stubborn and putting yourself in some really dangerous situations. Remember, here you're trying to find out if this person actually murdered someone, and like, this isn't, I don't know, sometimes I was like, you're really putting yourself in some really shady situations, but I still thought it was a good time. Before that, I read Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is one of the books that came in the Fairy Loot adult box, and I had never heard of it, never heard of Juno Dawson, but apparently she has published a lot of books in the UK. This is the one that had like a bright yellow cover, and I was like, what the heck is this? And so it was voted on by my patrons for me to read September? August? I don't know, but I read it and I was actually really surprised. This is another one I gave a 4. Oh, I don't think I put the star rating on here, but I think, if I'm thinking back to my video, I think I gave it a 4.25. Like, I wouldn't say it's a 4.5 because that would round to a 5, but it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. It is a modern witch story, also like a contemporary witch story, where Her Majesty's Royal Coven set in the UK. They are witches, and then there's warlocks that are men, and we get this chapter of these 4 witches when they're younger, and then now we're following them years later. I think it's like 25 years later. So that was one of the things I loved, is that they were like in their 30s, and I was like, yes. And some of them were still, like, that was their full-time thing, and then some, had other jobs. A couple of them were close, some were not, and I was like, see, that's realistic. That's some real shit. But essentially, there is a trans character who comes into the picture, and basically, just to be warned, there's some very turfy behavior by one of the witches, and does not want this person joining the coven because, of course, turfy doesn't believe they are a woman or a girl. And there is also this like prophecy of this big bad coming, and it's like, is this new person, part of that, and who's gonna betray who? But it's really good, and it was really fun. And at first I just found it more fun, like a rompy time, and then as we start to like get into like really solid plot points and figure out like, oh, this is what they're worried about and these are the issues, I was like, oh my God, the stakes started to go up. And then the cliffhanger, God dang, that cliffhanger, I am ready. I started following Juno Dawson on Twitter. I need the next book like now. I rarely read books back to back, but I was like, if that other book was out, I would pick up that book right now. So I think that book is very underrated. Well, yeah, it has 4,994 ratings on Goodreads, only 3.89, which I am shocked. But I think if you had any interest in it, in a contemporary witch story with older witches, I think it's really good and you should give it a try. So go read it. I listened to The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. So I read earlier this year The Worst Best Man, which I loved. I did not love this one as much. I would give it a 3.5. I rounded up to 4. I didn't connect to these characters as much as I did to the characters in the other book, but I still did really like it. By the end, I felt really invested, but I guess I wrote a little mini review on Goodreads and I said, there were moments, the audacity. There were moments where I felt the character stood out, but it wasn't an entire novel. The plot was fun and there was a karaoke scene that was so good. But let's see. I said while reading this, listening to the audio, I found myself frustrated with the lack of sexy time and lack of communicating feelings. And I realized these are the hallmarks. Of romance, especially traditional publishing. I need to seek out some indie because the sex scenes were great, but I wanted more. What does this say about me? But there would be just like lead ups. Oh my God, I cannot stand it in a romance where they're leading up to the do and then somebody knocks on the door or someone cock blocks and I'm like, why are you doing this to me? I can't stand that. And just like, oh my God, I know miscommunication is a big thing in romance, but I was like, oh, have feelings, because both of these main characters, she is very much like, I need true love. I need this person to be devoted to me or I don't want anything less. And he is very much like, true love and like the one doesn't exist. Like I need to find someone who is compatible with me. Like we have similar goals, but we don't need to be in love. And I won't say, I mean, I guess if you read the blurb, you'll know they're meet cute, but I won't say because it's fun. But they have these opposite views on love, obviously, but they're both feelings for each other. And I was just like, just say it. Just tell each other. I was losing it. But anyway, in the end, I still did really enjoy that one. Not as great as the first one, but still a fun time. Before that, I think the last book that I read that I haven't talked about, okay, I think I have 2 more. So How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu, which was one of my most anticipated books for the year. And I hadn't heard much about this one, so I was kind of nervous going into it. And this is a sci-fi book, and I didn't realize when going into it that, I don't know what to call it. It's not a short story collection. It's not an anthology. It's like, I don't know. It's only by this one author, but they're like individual stories that are all connected. Like you don't stay with the same characters and each chapter is a different story. But it's basically like in this world, maybe like 2050, and there was a big virus. Like the first chapter starts with this virus that outbreaks, and you basically get snapshots of stories from people around the world and how their life was affected by that, like how they dealt with it when it was going on. You even get stories later down the line, like after it's been going on for a while, and some are really weird and some are, more normal. And I don't know, it has just stuck with me for a long time. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really solid. Again, some of the stories are a little weird, but then some of it is just like, I don't know, it made me think. And being near future and having COVID, it was just interesting to, be in that space in this world that we are in and then read something like that. And then some of them, like one of them, oh my God, I don't know. Is that spoiling? Okay, I'm gonna put my hand up and spoilers are over when I put my hand down. All right. Okay, I'm gonna put spoilers on the screen. When that's down, that's when the spoilers are over. So this one story is a man who made it through, like he's woken up even though he was like on the verge of death, but he made it through after they have the cure for the pandemic, the disease or whatever. And his chapter is basically in a form of a letter that he's written to his neighbors saying like, you know, I was this and I was so focused on work and I had my family and I ignored all the people around me, basically inviting them for a barbecue, but just going, he was explaining like how he used to be and now how he wants to be now that the world is so different. And I was just like, I don't know. I still think about that one. But anyway, I did enjoy that one. So if you were interested in it and then I kind of fell off because people haven't enjoyed it, I still think it is worth a read because it was really good. The last one I'm going to talk about is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, even though everyone on the internet has talked about this, but I don't think I talked about it. I read it back when it first came out, maybe. I listened to the audiobook, which she narrates. And I have known of her, but I didn't watch any of her shows. I think I was a little older. I didn't watch anything she was in, but wow. I don't rate memoirs, but if I did, this would be a 5-star. It was just so, she was very vulnerable, very raw and real. And obviously she wanted to give the book a provocative title, which she did. But you know, after reading it, you understand there's so much she went through, and content warning for so much abuse, eating disorders, sexual abuse, verbal, emotional, oh dear goodness. And I just thought it was interesting just learning about her, like from when she was young and the family she grew up in and how she even got into acting. And yeah, just what she went through being a child star and being the breadwinner for her family, and struggles that, you know, basically abuse from her mom and how that affected her as she got older and even still to this day. So if you were interested, I think I haven't read that many celebrity memoirs or memoirs in general. Like I'm kind of picky because this is gonna sound bad, but like I'm not interested to read about everybody's life, but this one was incredible. And I think she just got another big book deal to write a fiction book, so that'll be interesting. I'm interested to see what that'll be and if it's going to be something that I want to read. But yeah, I thought the narrative, like the way she told the story, was really interesting. And wow, I was getting heated listening to it. You know, obviously she's gone through these things and a lot of it's in her past. I know she still deals with a lot of it, but I was pissed, as if I was overhearing the mom say this to her. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? A lot. But those are just some of the books. Actually, I went through the majority of the books because I haven't read that many that I've read in the last couple months, excluding the ones I read for my summer project, which I have a video about that somewhere. And I, for the most part, at least enjoyed a lot of them. I'm just not reading a lot. So yeah, now that I'm thinking about it on my Goodreads, I feel like I read something else. I can't remember. Oh, I read Nana by Brandon Massey. Why isn't that on my Goodreads? So was in some Black Aweenathon sprints and heard a lot of people talking about Nana by Brandon Massey. And so I was like, okay, let me get this. It's on Script, the audio. And essentially our main family is a couple. They have 2 kids. They're both doctors. It's a Black couple. And they live in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta, so they're doing really well. But she never knew her mother. And all of a sudden, after a tragic accident in her family, her mother shows up. And from that moment, I was suspicious. I was already suspicious. Obviously, I knew this was something's gonna be going on. And it is a ride. Like, it is one of those, I want to call her evil, like, mother-in-law kind of stories, because of course the daughter is really excited. She's never met her and now she wants to like bond with the mother, which is so funny because she just pops up like, oh yeah, I was just gonna drive back to Houston. And then she's like, oh no, stay the weekend. And magically she has like a huge suitcase packed enough for 2 weeks. And the husband is like, and she's like, you can't say that about my mom. And things just start happening to people, to animals. Yeah, I can't say more because it would like give away what's going on, but like it's obvious that there's something off about her, and so the husband is trying to figure out like her history and where she's been, because she said, you know, she went on to have a lot of children after this, but she left her daughter, like she had her when she was really young, so she gave her up for adoption. And it was a bit creepy, I will admit. Sometimes I was like, ooh, and some of the visuals that were being explained, I was like, ugh. I did once, like halfway through, I was like, okay, I know what's going on here. But I still did enjoy watching them figure it out and like, you know, watch the conclusion of the story. But it's, I think it's a good audiobook, a good, quick, fun, it's like a thriller. Would you put it on the horror spectrum? Maybe both, but it's very fast paced. So like I would say there's horror elements, but also very suspenseful. Anyway, those are my recent reads. Have you read any of these, or have you been reading? How has your reading been? Let me know. Hopefully you're doing well. I'm not gonna put any huge pressures on myself to like speed back up my reading. Those books that I said for my 5-star prediction are the only ones that I really want to get to by the end of the year. So hopefully I can get to those. But thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to. I'll have all those books listed down below, and ways to find me on the internet, ways to support my channel, join my Patreon if you would like to. But stay blessed, hydrated, moisturized, and sunscreen, and I'll see you in my next one.